Hi, everyone, and welcome Soul Tribe, and welcome Phil and Greg. Excited to do another show on Awakening Insider with you guys. How are you doing tonight?
I'm so good, and as always, so much better for being here.
Oh, I think you just,
Sorry about
I think it froze
that.
for a second. How are you doing, Greg?
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful to be here. Always really good to join you too. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, awesome. So tonight we've picked the topic for the science of meditation and how to heal the mind and the body. So this is something that the three of us, it's one of our side quests, if not main focus in life. We're all those kind of, I guess, down the rabbit hole explorers of having firsthand experience with meditation, astral travel, energy work, all of the other things we've talked about on this show here. So let me just get into a little bit of the start. So when we look into the actual science behind it, and we'll bring up some slides, we've got a couple of little video clips and things to share, but just some of the key facts and insights around meditation before we get into the main part of the chat. So meditation reduces stress, enhances brain function, improves health of your heart as well. So it can help bring stress levels down. We can all see sometimes when someone's under high stress and the blood pressure goes up. So a really good technique is to do meditation, get control onto things, strengthens immune system, mind-body connection. It helps with neuroplasticity. So it's going to keep your brain younger and have more connectivity. It's going to get all those little neural networks firing and wiring together. And if you're training it in meditation too, you're also going to be emitting different brain waves, which we'll show a little video on shortly. So promotes emotional balance, reduces symptoms of anxiety and depression, increases self-awareness, and it's also really good for pain management. And I've experienced that firsthand doing hypnobirthing, especially with my son when the labor came on strong and fast. It was that 5-hour period of intense pain, felt like 5 minutes. And then, doctor came and checked on me, and I'm like, oh, damn it, I'm out of that like hypnotherapy state now. I can't get back in because the pain had escalated. But it does work amazing for a lot of women, and it's a really good tip for if you're having to get any kind of procedures done or you've had some kind of accident or shock. It's good to know how to switch your nervous system into a certain space and to put your mind into that deeper relaxed state. Was there anything you guys wanted to add that you could think of that meditation does for you guys, apart from also connecting to us into hyperspace and the quantum?
Oh, look, I'll jump in. Here. Yeah, look, one great thing, I read it in this book many years ago. I read a book called Entering the Circle. It was by a Russian psychologist, and she had sort of stumbled into Siberian shamanism. It's actually a very readable book. And she talked about how she met this really old woman in Siberia somewhere who looked very, very young. And this woman used to look at a picture of herself when she was, kind of in her youth every night before going to bed, and would fall asleep with that kind of vision energetically of this kind of young kind of when she was in that kind of bountiful time of her life. So it was quite interesting, and I always think often with Reiki, like falling asleep, often I'll just bring Reiki through and I'll just imagine myself fully healed, whatever that means, and fall asleep with that happening. So it's just kind of like, but as you said, Sol, amazing with the hypnobirthing, but it's a part of what we do, and I think it's the driving factor for all three of us, really, isn't it? Hey, Phil?
Oh, Phil, you might need to drop your reds down, I think.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, wonderful. And this is such a wonderful conversation because, much of our suffering is essentially unnecessary. And what is the cause of that? In many ways, it's an unskilled or an untrained mind. If we're just taking meditation from sort of more of the angle of like organizing our sort of mental space so that we don't have this cause and effect chain which manifests into like a highly charged emotion, which can result in a physical reaction. And so, simply, the value that we can see in many studies and in many traditions around the world, who, it's actively part of their day. It's something they do anyway. It's something, we do it, some countries will do this, is like we brush our teeth. They will take time out to sort of let their mind organize itself, like in the morning when they come back from journeys. And so, seeking to understand, how your mind works and operates so that we can sort of be the master of it and not be mastered by it, especially while it's sort of growing and developing, can lead to a much happier life.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I love what Greg said too. I'm wondering if I print out a younger picture and start practicing that now. It's never too late to work on those and holding that concept. And there was a study where they actually did that. That I think it was around the 1950s. So they took people that were in their youth in the 1950s, created sort of like a simulated reality version. I guess if we imagine like Happy Days kind of era. And anyway, they played the music, they got them to sort of dress in the clothes. I think they lost on average about 10 pounds. They started to have like new neuroplasticity, and get the memory back and things too. It's so interesting. It's like when we tap into like the self-concept work, or tapping into like that other version, and music is that one thing that even like with dementia, Alzheimer's, it activates a different part of the brain. So you can sometimes bring someone out of a little bit of a moment with music. I find that the brain responds really, really interesting to that. Let me just pop up a little brain map that we've got here. So it's quite common knowledge nowadays that trauma affects the brain. So I just want to show a little map of important parts of the brain. So we've got the prefrontal cortex, which is at the front here. So this manages our thoughts, our behavior, regulates emotions such as fears, response to events, and trauma can weaken the signals from this area. So allowing negative emotions to take over this area's reasoning ability. And this part's also affected in certain forms of ADHD. And so there's different things that you can do to activate it and bring it back online. But I find that meditation also kind of helps to synchronize and drop in and to bring the brain more holistically together. So we've got the amygdala in the middle green section there as well. So this acts as the signal for stressful situations, which protects us from danger. So when active, so it's hard to think rationally. Trauma can cause the amygdala to stay overactive, leading us to feelings of anxiety, stress, and danger. And that's that kind of caveman fear response that we've talked about on many shows. So it's that hyper alert, vigilant part of us that's like, danger, danger, Phil Robinson. And then we've got the hippocampus at the back here, which assists in the learning and memory storage. So responsible for difference between past and present. It helps to calm the amygdala. So trauma can make the hippocampus shrink, which is really interesting how, the brain will take an impact in such a way. The other thing that I had to show you was you'll find so many more maps building it out. I just want to keep it a little bit simple, but show you there's much more expanded ones with that. And also, we've used this one before. So the left being the logic, the right being connected to the universe, the absolute or creative. And I do have a little video to share to step us into the next part. You guys know that I went to the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat November last year, which was amazing. And I have a little video of him explaining. So I'll just play this for you guys. It only goes for a little over a minute.
One of the purposes of meditation, according to our work, is to get beyond the analytical mind. And what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And our subconscious mind is where we have those habits and unwanted behaviors that are programmed because we've done them so many times that it's not conscious anymore. It becomes subconscious. And so in order for us to change, we have to learn how to get beyond the brain's critical facilities. And we've stumbled on a formula in teaching people how to do that. And the way we teach them how to do that is to change their brain waves. And when we see people slowing their brainwaves down from beta to alpha, there comes a moment where when they apply the formula, the brain tends to get more organized or more synchronized or more coherent.
Yeah, this is a person who was practicing tuning into frequencies. She felt the energy, okay, the energy coming up. And
I'll just pause that there. But if you guys are looking to this website, you'll also find maps and little brainwave charts. And what they discovered after, I guess, scanning a lot of people with Dr. Joe's work was that not only were people getting into that, I guess, the theta brainwaves and getting from beta. And I've got this little, have a look at this, guys. This is cool. Where has it gone? I'll bring it up later. But there was a cool little brain thing that I had here. Let me just see. There's another little Dr. Joe thing. Here it is. So this is all about getting beyond. Okay, I'll pop this up. So I'll jump into, there's a lot of work sometimes doing the background operation side to get it to come together. Here it is. So getting beyond the analytical mind. So when we get beyond the analytical mind, this is where deep healing takes place. So this would also be like where you guys are, you know, working with your Reiki, working with some of your other practices. So we're essentially getting beyond that normal waking high beta energy past the analytical mind and then into theta. What Dr. Joe discovered with those, I guess, the brainwave is that some people are even getting into gamma, which is like the universal consciousness. It's where we're going into the quantum and we're seeing people recover from stage 4 illness. I'll keep it very careful with what I say because we're on YouTube. But yeah, what do you guys think about this? Or do you have practices that you feel take you to those deeper levels?
Yeah, so I used binaural beats for many years. My favorite ones to use were from a company called Sacred Acoustics, which Eben Alexander, for those who may be aware of Map of Heaven and Proof of Heaven, he was the author. And very fascinating, beautiful tracks, recorded with 432 hertz, incredibly well scheduled out, laid out. I've tried others as well. I've got a whole library of binaurals. And what I came to the conclusion is that they're very handy to help as an external sort of mechanism to help lead your consciousness through the harmonization process to help it quieten down and bring you down to a very subdued state so that you can become familiar with that region of consciousness so that you can go, I was here, now I'm here. It's led me to two different places, from one place to another place. And that journey that you take is something that, you know, you can replicate yourself with certain types of trainings. And so in Hermetics, for example, we seek to sort of, you know, look at, break down the functions of the mind, whether it's the intellectual, the will, the feeling, and also the overall consciousness. And we go, okay, well, how can we train these things to sort of work in harmony with each other so that then they're not working against each other, creating the noise, which is stopping us from getting into these very, very still states. Because one of the beauties of using binaurals is that they're drivers. They just grab the stuff and move it and then pull you down. And so it's a very good way. But I found after a few years, I became quite reliant on them. And so I wanted to find a way to be able to do this if I was lost on it, if I was stuck on a desert island, you know, like I didn't have my binaural beats, you know, how could I replicate this for myself for the benefits, whether I was going to do some kind of journeying or I just wanted to help regulate the system. But yeah, I mean, you know, having a map of consciousness, whether it's, you know, bringing together the information we have on neuroscience, and also, you know, brainwave awareness, REM, sleep. These are all very valuable to the modern mystic because they help us to make sense from a very practical point of view, especially in the West, how to get to places that we've been before, how we can become familiar with them, the flavor of the mental environment or the felt environment that we find ourselves in. So we can take notes of the address, if you will. What were the items that we were discovered there? So yes, having a map and an understanding is handy, because it's going to help you find your way back, and having tools to help, training wheels at the best, but still very beautiful, very functional, and I still enjoy. My favorite personally at the moment is pink noise. It sounds like a waterfall. It cancels all the rest of the sound out, and it allows me, once I attune to the sound of, equalize with the sound of the pink noise, or the waterfall as I call it, then I can basically, that falls away, and then I'm in a very clear space.
That's a good tip. And I love binaural beats and pink noise too. And there is something magical about listening to music that's recorded in 432 hertz. My good friend Michael Lee Hill, he records a lot of his stuff in 432 as well. How about you, Greg? What sort of tips and tools do you love to get you into that level?
Yeah. And I think I mentioned to you both years ago, because of going astral, I think I was meditating one day, and then my left brain kind of dropped out. Well, I felt this movement, the back of my left brain, and then for a while I had problems talking. But it's funny, because I've had a few clients who've had similar situations, and what I found is since then, even though it took a while to get the words back, I was a bit awkward. But I guess personally experimenting with the out of body experience, astral traveling a fair bit, I started to question which reality, what reality is more real. So I found when this happened, the narrator kind of stopped, and I found it easy to drop into that kind of space. So I'm interested in brain entrainment, I guess. What I mean by that is, even now, if I'm talking about astral travel, your brains, everybody listening, there'll be parts of your brain that start to resonate with a similar frequency. So I found that it's kind of like, I guess I got obsessed early on with meditation for relaxation and for how I felt and how I get rid of anxiety. And it was an obsession in my early 20s, so much so that I remember I got very, very sick because I was meditating for a couple of hours a day from the beginning in my early 20s, and from never having done it. And that kind of almost losing yourself to find yourself was what I found magnificent about it. But then when that experience with the left brain thing happened, it was interesting because I found it easy to drop into that kind of nothingness. And then a few years ago in Brisbane, actually, the guy, the Pandora Star, this light that I use for entrainment with clients, it's kind of a meditation machine. So it is kind of like a light version of kind of these binaural beats, if you like, flickering. And you think of sun gazing, you think of fire gazing, all of these ancient practices. So anyway, the guy who was the Pandora Star distributor, he wired me up like you saw on the Joe Dispenza things, because he knew about my astral traveling stuff. And what he said was interesting. He said, well, so the predominant wave state was the gamma wave, the predominant one. So all the wave states are working all at once, but there's often we have predominant wave. So he said, you don't really see any of this is real, do you? And I said, no, well, personally, I don't. So I'm having to come to terms with being human. That's my thing, is to ground. So what I found is the gamma wave, which is kind of like it's a high frequency meditation wave. So it's actually, that's why it's hyper realistic in the astral realms. So what happens is you kind of, you tune out, then all of a sudden you tune in. So I found also just long bouts of meditation, like for novices, I found like when I've taken these retreats, when people are probably about day 3, if meditating for around 6 hours a day or so, and about day 4 was when we really could introduce the idea of leaving the body, because it took really 3 days for people just to get into that zone where they could meditate and their mind wouldn't scamper off somewhere. So I've just found literally, like to those of watching today who want to experience these higher states and these very kind of centered states, just to literally take a few days where you just meditate in bouts of 2 hours, and just a lot of meditation. I remember coming back from the first retreat I did thinking, my God, I need to meditate 6 hours a day, otherwise, you know, and of course you get back into normal life, and you know it's probably not going to happen unless you're a monk. But anyway, that's my. I found the brain entrainment with the light is very good. Just going through different frequencies, but the gamma wave is an interesting one to work with as well.
I'm not as surprised that you had the gamma wave show up, as you said, like with your connection with astral travel. Super, super cool. That's like, you know, where people have more multidimensional experiences or experience contact with interdimensional beings and things. That's a little bit of the correlation of what they're finding with Dr. Joe's research. And you talking about devices, guys, is so cool because I'm such a geek for stuff like that. So I've tried out a few different ones. I tried out a focus band and I've tried out a brain tap. With the brain tap, and because I know a lot of the our beautiful audience on this show knows I have a problem with technology and things exploding and things just stop working, especially if we're talking about certain subjects where I'm excited. But with a brain tap, you've got the headphones that are playing the binaural beats music and sort of brain entrainment, a little bit like HemiSync is what it kind of feels and sounds like, but it plays flashing lights in your ears. So there's actually light sensors in the auriculars part of the ear. So it's like stimulating and putting you into a deeper state. Your brain's actually seeing that light, which is phenomenal to think of. And then it's got like a visor that comes down, looking almost like 3D goggles, sunglasses, and that's got flashing lights too. So it instantly kind of drops you into like a deeper state. I bought one, and unfortunately, I tried 5 different versions of it. And each one worked for maybe about 20 minutes, and then I couldn't get it to work. So I went back into the clinic where I bought it, and I could put it on. If they put it on me and I didn't touch it, it would work. So I don't know if it was like something just energetically. It was super, super weird, though. They had never seen that before. But yeah, I do have some people that I know that also have them, love them, swear by them. There's particular programs you can download and have with it. I also want to talk about with where we said about trauma and it affecting the brain and things too. The other important thing is that, you know, trauma not only affects that, it affects our vagus nerve, it affects our nervous system. And one of the things that I actually had an experience with last night, and I was sharing with you guys backstage, I went and had a sleepover in one of the EES systems, which is kind of like a quantum healing system. But before doing that, I went to this guy's breathwork class. So this is Barney, and I've got the website up. I'll actually copy and paste and pop it in the comments. So if you guys want to go check him out, really, really cool. And it was amazing. So there was sound healing, you know, music and things played at the same time. He walked around and we were just coached the whole time with the breath work. So breathing in and exhale. And we did triangle breath. I think we did maybe some box breathing and some kind of almost like a hyperventilative type breath, you know, like quite fast movement. But what happens after doing the breath, and he works you through certain levels of breath too, which we know changes the brain. You find that your body actually starts to communicate to you where there's trauma and things. So I noticed like a sensation coming up in my ribs. And from my kinesiology training, I'm like, oh, that's anterior serratus. That's connected to the lungs. This is connected to grief. And then I started to feel more information, and I'm like, okay, when did this come up? So we can tap in and talk to the body's intelligence. And so it's like, this was from 2 years ago. So there was things happening sort of trauma-wise, shock-wise 2 years ago that my body was actually processing and letting go of last night. So you can feel like a pins and needles kind of approach, and a little bit of like, you'll get maybe your legs shake a bit. Some people get full-on shakes. It's like the nervous system processing and purging all of this out. So I did have a nice, gentle emotional release that was just kind of like tears, but I was so grateful for the experience. It was really actually quite deep and quite profound. So I will be going back. How about you guys? What's your experience with that link between the mind and body? Oh, Phil, we don't have your sound. I might start with Greg, and then we might get you just to see if you can log back in. Sometimes that rejigs it.
I think he's back in. Are you back in, Phil?
Oh, you're okay?
Check.
Yep, all good.
Right, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so if whatever path we're on, there's going to be a need essentially for some kind of letting go. If I just use it, if we want to rise in consciousness, where the herd is only as fast as the sort of the slowest member. And some of those lower things, those blockages, those traumas, those very dense things that compound and aggregate within any of our subtle systems, there needs to be a way to sort of, dissolve them, let them go, release them, as you've said. And so, so first we have to discern them, we have to become aware of them, and then we have to kind of get our fingers around them and dislodge them and dissolve them. And there's a variety of methods. For myself personally, because I train Reiki and Tai Chi, Qigong, and Hermetics, I found that using a felt sensation where I can sort of containerize some, the trauma when it comes into my awareness. And so, sometimes they're hidden below the surface. You've got to go hunting for them. You might be wondering why you've got this issue, but once you find it, then you can essentially unmanifest it, because this is not something. It may have served some purpose. It's essentially like an extra heavy weight, but at some point you realize, well, I don't need to wear a tie when I go for a marathon run anymore. I feel like I've got some value from this experience and I can let it go. But yeah, being able to essentially whatever comes our way is a form of information. And so trauma is a kind of an information that changes us. It leaves a deposit or a residual remains of itself. And then, but sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. Sometimes we can have an encounter with something traumatic and it doesn't leave a mark like other things do. Some things get a bit deeper. And so back to the mental training or the training of the mind, meditation, we can essentially, through practice, change our relationship to information that may have previously caused us trauma, but now, because we've trained the mind to keep a distance between it, so we can just observe it without engaging in what we would call a creation cycle, where we may have an emotional reaction. That emotional charge can build up and leave those scars or those things that need to be released later. And so by reevaluating our relationship to how we encounter information as a starting point, we can just look at it and not have a reaction to it, or what we would call, we don't touch our thoughts. So yeah, very important.
That's a cool explanation. And how about you, Greg?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what I find interesting with being a Reiki practitioner is often people might come in to the room who have never met before, and they might be crying when they come in, but then they're on the table, and really after a couple of minutes, it's like it's moved on. It's like it's very quickly moved that trauma out or on or whatever. But personally, it's interesting. When my whole journey started into this direction, I went to a craniosacral person when I was living in Austria, and just because I had a sore shoulder, and that was just phenomenal. Like I had these emotional somatic releases where my body would start to vibrate. I'd move into a position and I would relive seemingly random things from when I was a baby. It was so weird, but so real, And regarding the breath work, it's interesting. I've done Wim Hof for quite a few years, on and off. That's good. I do bring that kind of breathing into my Astral workshops as well, because I just find it just gets the body pulsating. And I did a breath thing. I was just happened to be there because I was presenting myself, and that was really good. That I kind of was like a hyperventilation where I cut out. Well, I kind of fainted, and when I came to, it was very ecstatic, and then it was kind of almost, I just released a lot of crap. It was like, what, being born again. I guess it was like a rebirthing. The old days they called it rebirthing.
Yeah.
It was a classic kind of rebirthing where do I want to come in here? I don't know. And then I had another one where it was a bigger group. I happened to find myself again that I didn't necessarily choose to be there, but I was there. And this one was really full on because there was only anyway. I just had I was once again knocked out, and then it was my full-bodied, like there was something else screaming. So there was something maybe past life, or the whole body went into spasm. So that was very full on and interesting, very interesting. And I think a lot of this goes to the notion of surrender. I think a lot of people, I mentioned before, the notion you've got to lose yourself to find yourself. I think not to judge yourself, like it doesn't matter what it is or where it's coming from. It's energetic, just to release it, just get out what is not you so that you can be the best version of yourself. However, which way you want to define that, whether that's happiest version or better functioning or more focused or happiest, I guess, most content. But it is cool, though, the breath thing. I've also seen the Astral. I was once shown these aliens by my guide. I was shown these aliens. They were breathing at 68 beats a minute, 68 breaths a minute for 10 minutes. And I tried that in an Astral workshop and everybody started fainting. So that's a bit quick, but just very, very quick breathing to connect. The intention was to connect with higher intelligence. And that's what I was being shown. So because of that, I brought it into my workshops where I just get people just hyperventilating for a little bit with an intention.
And it works. I had that last night with the breath work. So what was interesting and what made me feel a lot safer to start to process and release, trauma and things out of the body. I saw these beautiful, I think it was when we were getting to the stage of the breath in and out quite fast. Yeah. And then I saw these beautiful golden filigree design, when you see like a bracelet that's got like those little swirls of gold, and it's almost like wire wrap type work. It's really beautiful and more kind of Renaissance period, I guess. But I saw these angels that had wings that were like filigree spirals and love hearts and just their energy walking around the room. And it was so bright. I opened my eyes at one stage because I'm like, but, it was mainly in the third eye that I was seeing this and in the other dimensions. But, working with this breath work, it does sort of shoot you through that veil into the higher dimensions. And the same with the work that I've done, with Dr. Joe's retreats and even other meditations and things that I've worked with in hypnosis. But the other question, and this is a little bit on like the fringe side of things for maybe what we can talk about here. So I have to keep it dialed back a little. But sometimes like with doing the breath work or doing even the Dr. Joe Kundalini shifting, where he talks about squeezing the pelvic floor and we're like a reverse coffee plunger, pulling that energy up, pulsing it and releasing it out the pineal. Sometimes my body vibrates so strong that I feel like it's like pins and needles all over, and I feel like I'm going to explode outside of my body. So it's like a Kundalini experience. But there's that mental part that comes in of our consciousness. It's like, hold on a minute. I don't know if like I can handle like this much ecstasy or this much kind of like pins and needles rumbling like throughout the body. And so I find I'll get to like a certain point and then I might bring it back. I just wondered like if you guys have experienced that, and I'm working to let my consciousness go into beyond, any fear or things. And I'm perhaps going to do a little bit of hypnotherapy around that too, to get beyond that and see what's on the other side of the wall. But have you guys had things like that happen?
Yeah. So, when we encounter new experiences, sometimes, it's a gradual build up. Sometimes, you'll get a Gopi Krishna where you have the full Kundalini, the 1,000 petals opened up on your crown, and then you can't function for months, because, it was an accidentally sort of ignited or initiated experience before the necessary structures or things were involved. But, with like when you are having an experience and you are finding that it is becoming overwhelming, you find that you'll pull back a little bit, and it's like every day you run to the next lamppost, you can handle a bit more.
That's what it feels like.
So so that's a really responsible way of dealing with these things. As you encounter them, you go, okay, all right, that's enough for now. Because I've got plenty of friends that like taking the hero dose, and they end up having to pay for it. And and in Hermetics, we've got some pretty cool things to do, but you got to do them proper. But as far as getting the top to pop, you can work the orbits like they do in Taoist systems, the microcosmic, macrocosmic orbits. We've got a system in Hermetics where we balance the astral body using the 4 elements, which is very fun and very cool. And and then there's many Vedic systems of releasing too, and like that one you mentioned, that sounds familiar. I've heard of some things similar to that. but you know, like sometimes it's just going to pop, ready or not. And you know, hopefully you've got someone on the speed dial that will just not judge you and just come over and just help you find semblance again, because sometimes experiences can be overwhelming. And so it's good to have a spotting partner on the speed dial. Yeah, so, but yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I remember sitting down doing one of the Reiki meditations called Joshin Kokyoho, which is sitting in the belly and then pushing the energy up and out. And yeah, I had like a mini Kundalini from that, which is pretty awesome. And you know, you feel it, and you just feel this sparkling rise through your central axis, and then it just, and it's like, whoa, you know. And but like I said, it was a mini one. I've had things that have probably been a little bit more significant, but as far as like a gentle introduction to what I believe was that Kundalini type experience, you know, that was just from, like I said, simple meditation that's shared amongst other traditions, but getting the subtle substances swirling, activated, you know, getting the initial impetus for movement to happen, just like when you're climbing the rope to get out of your body. You know, you're learning how to do something new, and you know, there's lots of different ways of doing that, but I think you know, just like I said, a little bit at a time. That you look, you got plenty of years, guys. Just take your time with it, because you can do yourself a mischief. And as cool as it might seem at the beginning, you know, afterwards it can be a bit sort of it can put you off too a bit. It can be a bit overpowering. I've had some things that when I do them now, I just pull back a little bit and let them kind of unfold.
Yeah, and this feels almost like an egg cracking open, like with light splitting out of it.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm used to when it happens spontaneously, or if I'm kind of like in dream realm or something activates. And I've had similar feeling on ayahuasca as well, where all of, especially the root chakra, for some weird reason on ayahuasca, just was like pulsating for like 4 or 5 hours nonstop. So it's like intense, kind of like tingling and like rippling throughout like the whole body. So yeah, I feel like part of me is like, maybe, you know, it's human mind wanting to control the situation, and maybe I need to relax and go with it. But it does feel that it's activated using this mechanical pump that stimulates the plasma to go up, that cerebrospinal fluid. So I think that's probably the physical or semi-physical conductor between the physical and non-physical planes. We also just had something I wanted to mention quick before we get Greg's take on it. So Quadripler said, is there something to do with NEDs? I would say that this might be certain chemicals and things that are also released when someone goes into trauma, or certain things like within the bloodstream, like on a mechanical, physical level. And Jake also replied with, good question. I think breathwork also stimulates the pineal. So yeah, there's a lot of stories of supernatural experience that closely mirrors a lot of the meditation experience. How about you, Greg? What's been your experience with kind of the Kundalini side of things?
Look, like as Phil was saying, I haven't really pushed that too much, because I've had like quite a few clients who've had experiences where they've had some Kundalini, and they've gone on to into mainstream medicine, and they're on antipsychotics, and it's actually not good. I've helped a few with them, but it's tricky. For them, it's tricky, but for others, it's been okay. Personally, you know, it's funny. I do a bit of breath stuff, but I don't. I kind of haven't done too much of that kind of thing, as you say, using it as a pump kind of thing. I found the most full-on experiences where I've pulled back from have been awake, when I've been fully awake in 3D and I've had an astral experience. Like when the vibrations have been so intense in the body that I know what you're saying, there's this feeling that it's so full on. The first time happened when I had this kind of physical levitation, and it was like, and I had to like abort, like I had to scream to get out of there. But it was good. It was positive. It was just at the time a bit scary. But this feeling within the body, as you say, is like the egg with the light bursting through. The body almost couldn't contain that energy. So personally, I keep it back. And I guess a lot of my attention is with teaching, because of teaching astral stuff. So I'm pretty cautious. I like reading some of the Franz Barton stuff because there's in the Hermetic thing there's structure, and I think a lot of people, it's good to have steps. I think for us three, because we've been involved with this for a while, and we have this call to adventure that I was talking about last night. So there is this, like, let's step over put the fingers over the cliff a little bit, But the someone was mentioned before the pineal gland. Yeah, this, I think it does. I think working with I think breath does go into the pineal gland to help decalcify. And I find often, even at night, just if I really relax my body, I feel there's all these flashes behind my eyelids, flashes of light. And I find that if I can get to that state where I really use the breath to really relax the body, and I kind of, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I feel there's this light that is kind of pushed out of my third eye. So it's curious the ways we would approach it. At some stage, it's funny because I've asked many clients, what exact Kundalini breathing exercises do you do? They send me stuff, but I never look at it because I just look at it. It seems a bit full on, and I think at some stage I'll do that. But I am interested, actually. More and more, I'm interested to do these other things that are a little bit. There's something. The root chakra, as you say, that's the one that often. I love that feeling at night when, I think Phil mentioned a couple of weeks ago, sometimes you're lying there in the morning, whatever, and your body's just a buzz. And often I find it's that root chakra that's got that. I love falling asleep to it too, when you got that fantastic pulsation. Mm-hmm. It's so pleasant, isn't it? It's just so pleasant.
Yeah.
And I find if people are afraid of really pushing it, just to kind of look for it, like look for that, put your awareness into your root chakra and really relax. And I find it happens almost of its own accord. But really getting into that full on, that's very interesting experience.
It would be the only thing I could describe it with, those almost like chiropractic muscle massages that getting deep, and it's like super like vibrating, and you're like, you could only probably tolerate it for a bit. That was with ayahuasca, like what it felt like. But I had to actually, and I was lucky that I've done a lot of meditation and things and hypnosis. So I had to sort of almost disengage my mind from that Kundalini feel within the body. It was a really interesting experience. But yeah, it's happened at the Dr. Joe retreat too, where all of a sudden you know what I think it is? Because when you're getting into gamma and you're getting into the higher states, or you're working with the plasma in the body, because it stimulates the crystals, I think it's when we're sort of starting to go quantum. So I almost felt like I was going to physically crack open like an egg and just dissipate into the quantum. But even as a child, I'd have weird experiences like that, like around kindergarten age, falling into a void space without even sort of, knowing what I was doing, because I'm like 4 or 5 years old. But I also want to remind everyone too, if you guys want more in-depth knowledge, Greg does offer workshops and things on astral travel and Reiki, and teaches courses and events. And he's also just been going live a little bit more too on his YouTube. Yeah, definitely go jump over there, like, share, subscribe. And Phil has also updated his Substack. So you can now come into Phil's Substack and see the Awakening Insider series on here too. So it's so cute to see we're adding to the Substack. It's really awesome.
If I could say, one of the bonuses about using Substack, you don't even have to sign up for a membership or anything to access these guys. But if you watch these Awakening Insiders on Substack, you can listen with your screen off, and there's no ads as well. So I'll just leave that there.
That's great.
Cool. I like it.
It is. And you also have your bookings too. So you've got Reiki and energy work that you do, as well as tarot. And I also just want to recommend, if you guys are into the potion side of things and a little bit of alchemy, this would be definitely the potion to go with if you're talking about meditation, out-of-body experiences, and activating some of the things that we're talking about. So it's affirmation that I've written is I am the seeker. So perfect affirmation for what we're talking about tonight. And I've also got some bookings available over at Maison Jupiter. So using discount code Jupiter, to save 10%. And for you guys wanting to experience the meditations in the Soul Tribe, I know a lot of you have tried a few of the ones that I've got on here, and there's many different ones, whether you want to work with like an alchemy style meditation, jumping to higher timelines, or working with actually holographically changing your voice print too, because our voice print, as we've mentioned on other shows, holds everything. So with missing vibrations, we'll get disease and illness. And if we can fill those spots out and put those vibrations in, we tend to cancel out disease and illness. So we're definitely all about like the holistic side of health here on this channel too. And we've got about 15 minutes left. Oh, thank you, Jake. Awesome. So we've got some Vision Quest potion drinkers here. It is the blue potion. If you put a few drops of lemon juice, it will turn indigo purple. So it is a real alchemical, magical thing. Was there anything that you guys wanted to mention? I think we've sort of covered a little bit about why it's important to meditate, as well as the science to overcome the trauma, to take us and elevate us to the next level. We mentioned right at the start, it, you know, helps with having a stronger immune system. And we've seen, you know, disease and illness also reverse, as we said, stage 4. Is there anything that you guys that's coming to mind that you want to mention?
Yeah, look, I'll just say one thing. I just feel that like what might help a lot of people get over the line with meditation is and healing, in terms of healing, is that it's not an add-on. We're not adding on extra programs or layers or desires or intentions. It's actually letting go. So like what I perceived through my spiritual experiences outside of the body is that we exist in this state of perfection, you know, as you both would attest to, and many of the listeners too. So it's really about kind of falling into that state. So there's this feeling of trust and surrender. We're not actually adding on any kind of healing, you know, extra mesh. It's just a letting go. So meditation, by its very nature, takes you toward that that perfect state of being. That there's a word I'm looking for, but we have like a what do you call that? A blueprint, you know, of perfect health. And so everything in our spiritual makeup is designed for us to be 100% healthy. So to be unwell, they're the add-ons. So when you meditate, you release the add-ons, and we're not adding on being well. We're not. It's not an extra thing, and that's what I think people should realize. So just a few minutes of meditation, just being with yourself in that way, is by its very nature healing. Without it, we don't need to add that intention of healing onto it. It's a byproduct of meditation.
Yeah, and as Lisa said, excellent explanation. It really is. When we look at it to the blueprint level, what is it? Perfectly whole, healthy, and well. There's a few affirmations that I've heard people say in relation to that. And how about you, Phil?
Yeah, so I think the blueprint model or metaphor is beautiful, because if we think about it, okay, let's say we've had some interesting experiences. We may have gone out of body. We may have seen things that other people don't see. So we're open to the conversation. So let's try on a model. Let's say that at a deep, deep, deep layer of subtlety, at something like way down, like at the very base level of reality, there is an optimal version of you that is like a template that says, look, we know you're at this point in your life time-wise, but still, this template is essentially an ideal version of you physiologically, emotionally, and mentally. And what happens is that here's the ideal version of you at your current age, you know, like you might be 50 or 20 or whatever, but you're in good health. You know, you're doing all the right things. You're getting all the right inputs, exposing yourself to all the right things, right? But then in reality, in the physical world, you've been eating the wrong things, hanging out with the wrong people and all that. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect. And the bridge that connects these two bodies, if you will, the ideal template to these bridges can be essentially like a type of noise. So the linkage point between the ideal and what currently is, all you have to do is clean up those pathways so that it gets better information from the source. What noises up the pathways and the tuning forks? It's the decisions that you make with things like diet, social situations, the thoughts that you choose, what you sort of spend time paying attention to, what and so on and so forth. So by what we've been talking about, many of the ailments and issues that we suffer today, especially in the modern Western world, can be alleviated greatly by how we sort of relate to the information we're experiencing. And so that includes food. Everything is information. Everything is sort of conscious at some level, or there's some level of intelligence operating. And these things can be noisied up. And so that's one of our jobs, is to polish the diamond every day.
Yeah. Oh, that's well said. And we know that, with that pressure as well, that's what creates the diamond. So I agree with what Jake says too. So where your focus goes, energy flows. And I think our brains are designed, or the caveman part of our brains and the way that things actually work on I guess a physiological level is, our brain is wired to look for danger, or to look for, you look in the room and our brain sort of goes, oh, that shouldn't be there, or this person's annoying me, or, it's trying to keep us in a state of safety, and it's trying to keep us comfortable. So as you said, like polishing the diamond every day, or, doing the meditation, you're choosing to break away from that. You're choosing to actually create new neural networks, to break away from, I guess, the mass programming that's happening in the 3D realities right now. So we're actually going to be morphing and shifting and changing, not just astrologically, but I think when we start to explore more of these ancient techniques and sciences and the truth about like who we actually are, we're going to be like that limitless character, where Bradley Cooper takes the pill and becomes limitless, or Lucy, where she gets injected or has the things in her stomach, the drugs that burst. I don't think we're going to turn into black goo. But I think we are also reaching a stage of meditation and these kinds of spiritual practice where we're ready for it. So there's definitely a mass shift in consciousness. So this will change and affect the 3D world around us. So I know we're coming close to time, and just from my quick perspective on it, I was chatting backstage after the Galactic show with Mike Clellan from the Mason Jupiter show that I did earlier today. And we were sort of talking about, where we're heading as far as humanity. So I see us more working with our gifts and abilities that some people might call superhuman, but it's really just connecting to what the ancients knew. And the tribal versions of us, we're just sort of stripping back all the garbage that's been false history and things programmed in. Where do you see us guys going, or the collective going, when we're actually utilizing the brain more and we're coming into a more centered meditative state?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'll jump in. Touching upon what Phil said last week about with telepathy, how you need to watch what your mind's actually radiating. I think we're going to realize that we have the power to actually create our reality. We're not actually hostages. We're not victims. And I think a lot of humanity is bound to this notion of being a victim, because I guess trauma is to a certain extent part of the frequency of 3D reality. But I think we're shedding this trauma, and we're shedding a lot of deep stuff. I think what we're going to realize is, I think more and more people, okay, simplistically from an astral viewpoint, I think more and more people are going to become conscious moving astrally. And when you move into out of the temporal zones and you move into the now of the astral, where immediate manifestation occurs, there'll be more and more people with kind of heartfelt intention, creating a world that is more heartfelt, more real. And because in the end, it is a very benevolent, loving cosmos. So when we align with that loving energy, that will get more energy. So it's kind of like that noise is going to be cleared for more people to experience these higher vibrational states. I think we're moving toward that state where more people are ready for that. People have to be ready, and they have to kind of done the evolutionary hard yards to get there, even throughout other lifetimes. So that's why it's taken so long. But I think when we're ready to move through the addiction to trauma as a race, we're going to start to move into this beautiful reality, this kind of nirvana. That's what I feel anyway.
Yeah, I think that's really good to strip it back to, you know, with the healing aspect and the trauma too, because a lot of people, I guess, their first sort of spark of light on that path to recovery or to healing, it really is, I guess, trying to identify like what's going wrong in the body, to look at, you know, symptoms and illness and disease. And we know that a lot of that stuff comes usually in the emotional so we've got the spiritual blueprint, you've got your mental, emotional, and then the physical. So things don't usually manifest into the physical until the very last moment. So even with other things like accidents and that are sometimes a sign that we need to change direction from a higher level. So I think you're right. If we can sort of jump more into this space of already being healed or working with some of the higher spiritual aspects of healing, perhaps we're going to collapse that old timeline and jump forward into a utopia or nirvana. How about you, Phil?
Well, if we take a moment to just contemplate, you know, what a better situation would look like, whether it's social reform, whether it's the structures we've built in society to support, you know, the creation of beauty and inspiration, to encourage others to sort of like, you know, flower, you know, naturalness to spring forth, then what does it look like? You know, I'm sure it's going to be some beautiful sort of fusion and harmonious existence of technology and nature, where, you know, we are, you know, we've taken things to another level. We're not waiting for the fruit to fall off the tree. We're planting the trees in rows, so to speak, so we can intelligently do it, or, you know, however we choose to do it. But I think that, you know, moving forward, if we, you know, want to make a better world, then a good place to start, as always, is with yourself, because, you know, whatever you're radiating out, like Greg was saying, quoting me actually, you know, like what happens if we wake up one day and everyone's telepathic? Man, I tell you what, you better get your dirty laundry inside your head sorted out, because everyone's going to be watching it. And I did mention it. There's a movie, Chaos Walking, with Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland in it, which explores this topic, where the men can basically see each other's thoughts, but the woman, the woman can't see. No, you can't see the woman's, but you can see the men's, and it creates quite an interesting social dynamic to explore.
It's a good one.
But
It's a good one.
yeah, the movie's okay, but it's about exploring the topic. And you know, and this is a great way, and I think this is why I would encourage everyone, if you haven't already, get some form of creative expression in your life. And, you know, whether it's imagery or writing, you know, verse, learning to describe and explain things. Because I think if just to close up here, is to say that one thing I think the world could do more with is more genuinely empowered people, empowered from their own natural expression point, you know, and creativity is one way to sort of open that flower up. And, you know, once you know, then you know, and then it's a matter of courage. And so practicing courage, you know, there's a, you know, when we're on YouTube here, there's things that we can't really say. And so there's a little creep in of things like self-censorship. And we have to be conscious of that, because if that happens everywhere, then we start sort of tapering off our genuine expression, you know, and these kinds of things. So we have to be mindful of how often we engage and participate in those kinds of behaviors. I mean, over on good old Substack, I can pretty much say what I want. Doesn't mean that I get all silly on it, but, you know, I'm conscious of, you know, like, you know, how important it is that the people that I see, you know, the audience that I have and the people that come to me for feedback, and that I give them the best of myself. And sometimes that requires me to dig deep with courage, and something worth practicing. And yeah, that's what I've got to offer on that.
Well, good answers, guys. And I'm just going to bring up this. So through the week, I popped up the astrology So if you haven't already, go check out your sun, moon, rising. We do a little bit touching on to what's happening astrologically because it's a huge, huge month. We just had the 7 planetary alignments happen last night. We've started Venus retrograde. We're going into Mars retrograde in 2 weeks' time. We just had the new moon last night as well in
Yes.
Pisces. So like a hyper spiritual kind of psychic time. So everything that you were just saying, Phil, about cleaning up our minds for telepathy and things, this is so spot on to do with the astrology for now and with some of the planetary stuff. But I just want to remind you guys to go check out Phil's Substack, and his bookings are on there as well. And yeah, as Phil said on other things, it's good to sometimes get off some of these platforms that get censored and taken down. And we also have Greg's website too. So please come on over and check that out. And if you haven't already tried some Vision Quest, we have some really interesting meditations and stories and things that have happened from people working with this beautiful potion. So go on over to Soul Alchemy Potions. And we also yesterday just had our event for the new moon, which was amazing. We did a really fun exercise together. A little psychology Japanese experiment that I did with the guys over here. So you will get a free invite if you've ever bought a potion to come to the next new moon event. So that'll go up around mid-March. But oh, and thank you, Lisa. She's just saying, great conversation as usual, guys. Thank you. And Jake is saying, yes, the Astro videos were so wonderful. Thank you. Well, I so enjoyed our conversation tonight, and I could geek out and just spend days and days and days like astral traveling with you guys and having full-blown psychedelic experiences. And we'll get to it one day. I think one day in person we're going to have to do a workshop. And I know a lot of our audience is also wanting to come to events and meet up and things in person. Oh, thank you, Jake. Was there anything else you guys wanted to mention quickly before we go?
I did. I watched your Capricorn video yesterday or the day before. I loved it. Thank you. I thought it was Capricorn. So thanks for that. I loved it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that means so much to me. Thanks, Craig. Well, you guys. Oh, were you going to say something, Phil?
I've got the Aquarius one queued up now, mate. So I'm going to go check that one out.
Oh, cool. From memory, I think Aquarius was like, there's a bit happening. there's
really?
past lovers and things returning. So definitely go check that one out. There's karmic situations and things finishing up for Aquarius this month.
I better go check it.
Oh, I forgot to mention our show next week. We're going to be talking about paranormal ghost stories. So please mark your little calendar. It's going to be in 5 days' time. We're back to normal time, which will be our Australian Friday and New Zealand Friday, I think. Is that right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we look forward to seeing you guys over there. So come along for some cool ghost stories and talks of paranormal things. Any questions that you have, you might want to think of through the week, or if the audience wants to, in the notes, in the comments, share your stories. We would love to hear about it. But thank you guys again. And I will see you on Friday. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.